The vampire king was dining with his fiancée and her parents until a waitress whispered, "Run now. The Pinot Noir, sir. It has a finish like velvet." "Pour it," Percival Moorland said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the crystal stemware. He didn't look at the wine. He looked at me. I sat frozen, a doll in silk, flanked by a mother who was selling me and a stepfather who was counting the gold. The air in the private dining room was thick with the scent of roasted duck and impending doom. Percival's eyes were pools of ancient, frozen ink. He raised his glass, a mock toast to a union forged in blood and debt. I reached for my water, my hand trembling just enough to catch the light. The waitress leaned in to refill my glass, her apron brushing my shoulder. She didn't smell like soap and starch. She smelled like gunpowder and sage. Her lips barely moved, hidden by the angle of the pitcher. "Run now." The private salon of L'Etoile was designed to make people feel important. But tonight, it only made me feel small. The walls were lined with crushed red velvet, absorbing the frantic beating of my heart so that no one else could hear it. Across the table sat Percival Moorland. He was not what the stories described. They said the vampire king was a rotting corpse on a throne of bones, or a feral beast with eyes like burning coals. Percival was neither. He was terrifyingly human, save for a stillness that no living creature could possess. He wore a charcoal suit cut with severe precision, and his face was a landscape of sharp angles and pale marble skin. He hadn't blinked in 4 minutes. "Vivian is quite accomplished in the piano," my mother, Celine Whitfall, chirped, her desperation leaking through her polished veneer. She sliced into her steak with unnecessary force. "And French. She speaks it fluently." "Is that so?" Percival asked. He didn't look at her. His gaze remained fixed on me, dissecting me, peeling back the layers of my chiffon dress to judge the soul beneath. "I have little use for piano music, Mrs. Whitfall. Silence is a far rarer luxury these days." Alistair Winterwell, my stepfather, chuckled nervously, adjusting his silk tie. "Of course, Your Grace. We merely mean to highlight her breeding. She is suitable for a man of your stature." I gripped the silver fork until my knuckles turned white. Breeding. As if I were a prize mare. The debt Alistair had accrued gambling on illegal alchemical stocks was astronomical. I was the liquidation of assets. "Vivienne," Percival said. It was the first time he had spoken my name. It sounded like a summons. "You have not eaten?" "I'm not hungry," I whispered. "Vivian!" Alistair hissed, his smile tightening into a rictus of warning. Percival raised a hand, silencing him instantly. "Let her speak. Tell me, Vivian, do you know what you are doing here?" I looked up, meeting those abyss-like eyes. "I am being sold," I said, my voice steady despite the terror clawing at my throat. "To clear a ledger." The room went dead silent. Selena gasped. Alistair looked ready to strike me, but he wouldn't dare move in the presence of the king. Percival's mouth quirked. A smile or a baring of teeth? Direct, I appreciate that. Most humans coat their transactions in sugar until they rot their own teeth. That was when the waitress returned. She was young, perhaps my age, with messy brown hair tucked under a cap and eyes that were too alert, too sharp for a server. Her name tag read Thalia. She moved with a strange, fluid grace, carrying a heavy silver pitcher of ice water. She moved to my side, blocking Alistair's view of me for a split second. She leaned down to pour, and that was when it happened. The scent of sage, the whisper that hit my ear like a gunshot. "Run now!" She didn't wait for a reaction. She pulled back, But as she did, her elbow accidentally knocked the entire pitcher of ice water into Alistair's lap. "You clumsy fool!" Alistair roared, jumping up as ice cubes scattered across his expensive trousers. "Oh God, I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get a towel!" Thalia cried, her voice pitching up in feigned panic. She created a whirlwind of chaos, dropping napkins, blocking Selene's path as she tried to aid her husband. In the confusion, Thalia locked eyes with me. She nodded toward the service door behind the velvet curtain, a door I hadn't even noticed. My heart hammered against my ribs. Run. If I stayed, I died a slow death in a vampire's court. If I ran, I likely died a fast death in the alley. I looked at Percival. He was sitting perfectly still amidst the chaos of Alistair's cursing and Thalia's apologies. He was looking at the service door. Then, slowly, his eyes slid to mine. He didn't stand. He didn't shout. He simply turned his head away. He picked up his wine glass and took a sip, deliberately looking toward the window. He is letting me go. Adrenaline, cold and electric, flooded my veins. I didn't hesitate. While Alistair was busy shaking ice from his crotch and Selene was berating the manager who had just rushed in, I slipped out of my chair. I moved like a ghost, a skill I had learned trying to be invisible in my stepfather's house. I ducked behind the heavy velvet curtain and pushed through the service door. The kitchen was a cacophony of shouting chefs and clanging pans. I kept my head down, weaving through the stations. "Hey, you can't be in here!" a sous chef yelled. "Health inspector," I shouted back, pointing vaguely behind me, and burst out the rear exit before he could process the lie. The night air hit me like a physical blow, wet, cold, and smelling of rain and ozone. I was in the back alley of L'Etoile. Trash cans overflowed with the remnants of gluttony. "Don't stop!" a voice hissed behind me. I spun around. It was Thalia. She had shed her apron and was pulling a heavy trench coat over her uniform. She tossed me a pair of heavy boots she had seemingly pulled from behind a dumpster. "Your heels," she said, pointing at my silk slippers. "Lose them. You can't outrun a vampire in Manolos." "Who are you?" I asked, kicking off the expensive shoes and jamming my feet into the boots. They were 3 sizes too big. "Someone who hates weddings," Thalia said grimly. She checked a strange brass compass attached to her wrist. "We have 3 minutes before the hunter guard realizes the merchandise is missing. Follow me." "My parents are alive," Thalia said, grabbing my hand and pulling me into a sprint down the wet cobblestones. "For now. But once Alistair realizes the deal is broken, he'll be praying for death. Percival Moreland doesn't like unfinished business." As we rounded the corner, escaping the halo of the restaurant's lights, I glanced back. High above, in the window of the private salon, a silhouette stood watching. He was holding a glass of wine. He wasn't chasing. He was waiting. As they sprinted into the darkness, Thalia didn't lead me toward the police station or the sanctuary. She led me toward the city walls, the one place where the vampire king's jurisdiction ended and something far worse began. And on her wrist, under the compass, I saw a tattoo, a broken crown, the mark of the king's exiled brother. The city of Oakhaven was a bizarre mixture of Victorian Gothic and industrial nightmare. We were in the Shatters, a district named for the miles of broken greenhouse glass that littered the ground from the war 10 years prior. The rain came down harder, turning the soot on the buildings into black tears. My lungs burned. The boots Thalia had given me were rubbing my heels raw, but fear was a potent anesthetic. "Why did you help me?" I gasped, struggling to keep up with Thalia's military pace. "Because you're the key, princess," Thalia muttered, vaulting over a rusted pipe. and I'm not letting him have you." "Who?" "Percival." "Percival is a monster, sure," Thalia said, stopping at a junction of 3 dark alleyways. She checked her compass again. The needle was spinning wildly. "But he's a lawful monster. He buys his victims. The man I work for, he prefers to steal them." I stopped cold. The rain plastered my hair to my face. "You work for someone? I thought you were saving me." Thalia turned, and for the first time, her confident mask slipped. She looked guilty. "I am saving you. From the marriage. But nobody survives alone in Oakhaven, Vivian. My employer offers protection." "At what price?" "Cheaper than your soul." Before I could demand an answer, a shadow detached itself from the wall of a ruined factory. It was a man, massive and hulking, wearing a coat made of patchwork leather. His face was scarred, bisected by a claw mark that had taken one eye. "Ambrose," Thalia breathed, stepping back. "You weren't supposed to be here. The rendezvous is at the docks." Ambrose Hartcliffe smiled, revealing teeth that had been filed into points. He wasn't a vampire. He was something else. A lichen thrall, a human who drank vampire blood to gain strength, but lost their mind in the process. "Plans change, little bird," Ambrose grunted. His voice sounded like gravel grinding in a mixer. He looked at me, sniffing the air. "She smells like fear and lavender. The boss will be pleased." "Stay back," Thalia warned, pulling a serrated knife from her boot. Ambrose laughed, a wet, hacking sound. "You think that toothpick scares me? Hand her over, Thalia. You'll get your coin." I stepped back, my back hitting the cold brick wall. I had traded a vampire king for a mercenary and a monster. "Run, Vivian!" Thalia screamed, lunging at Ambrose. She was fast, but Ambrose was unnaturally strong. He backhanded her mid-air, sending her crashing into a pile of wooden pallets. She groaned and didn't rise. Ambrose turned his single eye toward me. "Now, let's not make this difficult." He reached for me with a hand the size of a shovel. I scrambled to the side, grabbing a shard of glass from the ground, slashing blindly. It cut his palm, but he didn't even flinch. He grabbed my wrist, squeezing until I cried out, dropping the glass. "Feisty," he sneered. "I like feisty." Suddenly the rain stopped. Not everywhere, just around us. The drops hung suspended in the air, glittering like diamonds in the dim street lamp light. The sound of the city faded into a dull hum. Ambrose froze. His eye widened in genuine terror. He released my wrist and backed away, his posture shifting from predator to prey. "No," Ambrose whispered. "You don't come to the shatters. You never come to the shatters." "I go where my property goes," a voice said. Percival Moorland stepped out of the shadows. He didn't look like he had run. His suit was immaculate, his breathing non-existent. He held a black umbrella, though he didn't seem to need it. "Your Grace," Ambrose stammered, dropping to one knee. "I didn't know. I thought she was free game." "She is not game, Ambrose," Percival said softly, closing the distance. He walked past me, ignoring me entirely, and stood over the kneeling thrall. "And she is certainly not free." "I was securing her for Lord Malachi," he thought. "Malachi thinks too much and knows too little," Percival interrupted. He tapped Ambrose on the shoulder with the tip of his umbrella. "Leave. Tell your master that if he touches what is mine again, I will pull the skeleton from his body while he is still using it." Ambrose scrambled backward, slipping on the wet stones, and fled into the night without a second look. Percival turned to me. The suspended rain crashed down all at once, soaking me to the bone. He tilted his umbrella, extending it over my head, shielding me while he remained exposed to the downpour. "An eventful evening, Miss Ashwell," he said dryly. I was shivering, partly from cold, partly from shock. You followed me. I own the restaurant. I own the street. I own the debt your stepfather incurred, Percival listed calmly. It is generally wise to keep an eye on one's investments. I looked over at Thalia, who was groaning, trying to push herself up. Is she dead? I asked. She will have a headache, but she will live. She is a pawn, Vivian. Irrelevant. Percival held out his hand. His fingers were long and pale. Come, the car is waiting. I won't go with you, I said, backing away, though there was nowhere to go. I won't be a blood bag for you. Percival sighed, a sound of infinite weariness. He reached into his jacket pocket. I flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a handkerchief and wiped a smear of mud from his cheek. If I wanted to drain you, I would have done it between the salad and the entree, he said. I do not require your blood, Vivienne. I require your name. He took a step closer. The air grew cold. You can return to the gutter with the rats and the likes of Ambrose, he said, his voice hard. Or you can honor the agreement. You come with me, and no one touches you. Not Ambrose, not Malachi, not even me, unless you wish it. I looked at his hand. Then I looked at the dark alley where Ambrose had disappeared. Why? I asked. Why me? Because, Percival said, and his eyes flashed with a strange, violet light. You are the only one who can open the door. I hesitated, then took his hand. It was cold as marble, but his grip was solid. As he led me toward a sleek black car idling at the end of the street, I realized something terrifying. I looked down at my hand in his. The cut on my palm, from where I had grabbed the glass shard, was already healing. I watched the skin knit together in seconds. Percival saw it too. He didn't look surprised. He looked satisfied. I wasn't just human. And he knew it. The drive to Moorland Manor was silent. The interior of the vehicle smelled of cedar and old leather. Percival read a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, ignoring me as the city lights gave way to the encroaching forest. The manor was not a castle. It was a sprawling, brutalist estate of concrete and glass, cantilevered over a rushing river. It looked like a fortress disguised as modern art. My home, Percival said as the gates swung open. Try not to break anything. Some of the artifacts are older than your religion. We were met at the door not by a hunchback servant, but by a woman in a sharp business suit with a tablet in hand. Welcome back, sir, she said, barely glancing at me. The council called. They are unhappy about the scene at L'Etoile. The council is always unhappy, Alara, Percival dismissed, handing her his wet jacket. See that Miss Ashwell is given the blue room, and call a medic for her feet. She's been running in boots that don't fit. I can walk, I said, though I was limping. I didn't say you couldn't, Percival replied, walking toward a massive staircase. I said you required medical attention. In this house, we do not glorify suffering. He left me there. Elara looked at me, her expression unreadable. Follow me. The blue room was the size of my stepfather's entire house. The walls were a deep indigo, and one entire wall was floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the waterfall beneath the house. A fire crackled in a suspended hearth. I sat on the edge of the massive bed, feeling like an imposter. A medic arrived shortly, a silent man who wrapped my feet and applied a salve to my scrapes. He left without a word. I was alone, but I wasn't safe. I wandered the room, testing the doors. Unlocked. The windows? Sealed, but not barred. On the bedside table, there was a leather-bound folder. Curiosity outweighed fear. I opened it. It was a dossier. My dossier. There were photos of me as a child, school records, medical history, And then, financial records. Alistair's debts. I flipped the page and found a contract. It was old parchment, brittle and yellowed, stapled to the modern legal documents. Agreement of ancestral debt. It was dated 1824. I, Silas Whitfall, pledge the first daughter of the 7th generation to the House of Moorland in exchange for the cure to the blood rot. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about Alistair's gambling debts. Alistair was just the catalyst. This was a deal made 200 years ago by my own ancestor. I flipped to the signature line. It was signed in rust-brown ink. Blood. You found it quickly, Percival's voice came from the doorway. I jumped, dropping the folder. He had changed into a silk shirt and loose trousers, looking less like a king and more like a poet. My family sold me 2 centuries ago, I whispered. Your ancestor was dying, Percival said, entering the room and pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid from a decanter. He begged for my blood to cure him. The price of vampire blood is steep. It binds the lineage. So you came to collect? I came to protect, Percival corrected. He handed me a glass. Brandy? It helps with the shock. I took it, but didn't drink. Protect me from what? From what you are becoming, Percival said softly. He walked to the window, looking out at the dark water. The blood my ancestor gave yours didn't just cure Silas. It changed his DNA. It lay dormant for generations. But in you, it is waking up. I don't understand. Why do you think your hand healed in the alley, Vivian? Why do you think you could see Thalia's movements when she spilled the water? You have the sight. You have the resilience. He turned to face me. You are not turning into a vampire. You are turning into a dhampir, a hybrid. And in our world, hybrids are hunted. They are used as weapons, or batteries. Ambrose, I realized. He called me a battery. Yes, Ambrose works for a faction that wants to drain you dry to empower their army. I bought your debt to bring you here, behind walls that no one can breach. I looked at him, trying to find the lie, but his face was open, tired. So I'm a prisoner for my own safety? A guest, he corrected. You can leave whenever you wish, but step 1 foot off this property, and every creature in the night will smell the power in your veins. He walked to the door. Get some sleep, Vivian. Training starts at dawn. Training. If you are to survive, you must learn to be what you are. I am not your jailer, Vivian. I am your teacher. He closed the door. I sank onto the bed, my mind reeling. I wasn't just a girl sold for debt. I was a dormant weapon. I looked at the dossier again. I noticed a loose paper slipped into the back pocket. I pulled it out. It was a photograph of the hunter guard that Thalia had mentioned. It showed a group of people in tactical gear standing over a slain vampire. In the center of the photo, smiling, holding a stake, was a woman. I brought the photo closer to the lamp. The woman in the photo wasn't Thalia. It was my mother, Selene, and the date on the photo was from last week. She wasn't a helpless victim of Alistair's gambling. She was a hunter, and she had sold me to Percival, not for money, but to plant a bomb inside his house. And I was the bomb. Dawn at Moorland Manor didn't break. It bled. The sun struggled over the horizon, painting the concrete walls in hues of bruised purple and crimson. I stood in the center of what Percival called the glass garden, a massive, temperature-controlled conservatory filled with plants that shouldn't exist. There were orchids that snapped at flies and ferns that shimmered with bioluminescence. You're breathing too loud, Percival said. He was sitting on a stone bench 20 feet away, reading a leather-bound book, yet he heard my heartbeat. I'm human, I snapped, wiping sweat from my forehead. We breathe. You are part human, he corrected without looking up. The other part of you is a predator, and predators are silent until the strike. He closed the book and stood up. Today, he wore a simple black turtleneck that accentuated the predatory grace of his movements. Attack me. I stared at him. Excuse me? You heard me. You have the reflexes of a dhampir. Use them. Strike me. I hesitated. The man could catch bullets, but frustration had been building in my chest since I found that photo of my mother. Was she a hero? A villain? Was I a weapon she discarded, or a grenade she threw? I lunged. To my shock, the world seemed to slow down. I saw the dust motes dancing in the air. I saw the minute twitch of Percival's muscle in his jaw. I swung my fist, aiming for his chest. He didn't block. He simply wasn't there. He was behind me. Too emotional. You broadcast your intent like a radio signal. I spun and kicked. He sidestepped, his movements fluid as water. I kept attacking, fueled by a mixture of rage and fear. Every time I missed, he offered a critique. Too slow. Too wide. You're thinking, not reacting. Finally, I screamed in frustration and threw everything I had into a punch aimed at his face. This time, he caught my fist. His palm was cool, his grip unyielding. We were inches apart. I could see the flecks of gold in his obsidian eyes. I could smell the scent of rain and old paper that clung to him. Better, he whispered. You stopped thinking. I hate you, I breathed, my chest heaving. Good. Hate is a fuel. Fear is a brake. He didn't let go of my hand. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, a touch that was confusingly gentle. Your mother trained you to be invisible, Vivian. I am training you to be inevitable. I pulled my hand back. You know about her. You know she's a hunter. I know Celine Whitfall is one of the most efficient killers in the sector, Percival said, his face impassive. I know she planted you here. And you still let me in? I keep my enemies close, he said, turning back to the bench. And their daughters closer. He picked up a towel and tossed it to me. Clean up. Tonight we have guests. The council is coming to inspect my investment. If they sense you are a threat, they will kill you. If they sense you are weak, they will kill you. So what do I need to be? He looked at me, his gaze intense. You need to be mine. As I walked back to my room, I passed a mirror in the hallway. My reflection moved a second later than I did, and for a brief moment, the reflection wasn't me. It was a creature with hollow eyes and a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. The dhampir blood wasn't just waking up, it was fighting for the wheel. The grand hall of Moorland Manor was a cavern of acoustic perfection. Tonight, it was filled with the low hum of conversation from the region's most dangerous creatures, the council. They didn't look like monsters. They looked like CEOs, supermodels and politicians. They held flutes of champagne that I suspected wasn't champagne at all. I wore a dress Percival had provided, midnight blue silk, backless, with long sleeves that hid the bruises from training. I stood by his side, playing the part of the compliant fiancé. Lord Malachi isn't here, I whispered, scanning the room. Malachi is a blunt instrument, Percival replied, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back. His touch burned through the silk. These are the architects. They are far worse. A tall, elegant woman with hair like spun silver approached us. Percival, you look alive. Lady Lysandra, Percival nodded. You look as sharp as ever. Lysandra turned her pale gaze to me. And this is the Whitfall girl. She smells complicated. She is unique, Percival said smoothly. Is she? Lysandra stepped closer, her perfume cloying and sweet like rotting lilies. We heard rumors of a disturbance in the shatters, a hunter presence. "Hunters are like rats," Percival said, his grip on my waist tightening imperceptibly. "They are always present. I handle them." "Do you?" Lysandra smiled, revealing canines that were slightly too long. "Because rumor has it, the hunter was your fiancée's mother." The air in the room grew heavy. The chatter stopped. Every eye turned to us. "My mother," I said, my voice surprising me with its steadiness, "is a woman with many debts." Percival settled them. That is the extent of her relevance. Lysandra raised an eyebrow. "Loyal, or well-trained." Suddenly a high-pitched whine filled my ears. It wasn't a sound, it was a frequency, vibrating inside my skull. I gasped, clutching my head. "Vivian." The voice was in my mind. It was my mother. "Vivian, listen to me. The wine, the red vintage on the center table. It's not for drinking. It's the catalyst." I stumbled. Percival caught me instantly. "Vivian! Don't trust him," the voice hissed. "He wants to use you to open the door to the abyss. He wants to bring back the ancients. You have to break the seal, smash the bottle." My vision blurred. I looked at the center table. There sat a single, ornate bottle of dark red wine, distinct from the others. "Are you unwell, child?" Lysandra asked, her voice mocking. I looked at Percival. He looked concerned, genuinely concerned. Or was it the concern of an owner watching his property malfunction? "Do it now!" my mother screamed in my head. "Or everyone in this room dies, including you." I pulled away from Percival. I stumbled toward the table. The frequency was blinding me with pain. I reached for the bottle. "Vivian, no!" Percival shouted, his composure shattering. He lunged, but he was too far. My hand closed around the neck of the bottle. I lifted it, ready to smash it against the marble floor. But as I touched the glass, a vision hit me. Not a sound, but an image. Percival, standing over a cradle. My cradle, protecting me from a shadowed figure. Him, whispering a binding spell to keep the monster inside me asleep. He hadn't brought me to use me. He had brought me to keep me asleep. My mother wanted to wake me up. I froze. The bottle hovered in the air. "Vivian," Percival said, his voice low and dangerous. "Put it down. That isn't wine. It's a containment field." I looked at him. Then I looked at Lysandra, who was watching with hungry anticipation. I didn't smash the bottle. I set it down. The frequency in my head screamed in rage and then cut off, leaving me reeling. "I apologize," I whispered to the room, swaying. I felt faint. Percival was at my side in an instant, scooping me up into his arms. "The excitement is too much for her," he announced to the stunned room. "Excuse us." He carried me out of the hall, his heart beating against my ear. As we ascended the stairs, I looked over Percival's shoulder. Standing in the shadows of the upper balcony, watching the entire scene, was Thalia. She wasn't holding a tray. She was holding a sniper rifle. And she wasn't aiming at me. She was aiming at Percival. She gave me a small, sad salute, and then vanished into the dark. Percival kicked the door to his private study open and set me down on the leather sofa. He didn't offer brandy this time. He paced, his anger radiating off him like heat waves. "She spoke to you," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I admitted, rubbing my temples. In my head. Psionic projection. Celine is more powerful than I anticipated. He stopped pacing and turned to me. "She told you to break the bottle. She said it would save me. She said you wanted to open the abyss." Percival laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "The abyss?" Vivian, the abyss is already open. It's inside you. That bottle contains the essence of the first binding. It anchors the wards of this house. If you had broken it, the protective seal on your own soul would have shattered. You would have become a conduit for every feral spirit within 100 miles. She wanted to kill me. No, Percival said, kneeling before me. He took my hands. She wanted to turn you into a bomb, a spiritual nuke to wipe out the council. You would have died, yes. But to a hunter, that is a glorious sacrifice. I felt sick. My own mother. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, tears stinging my eyes. About the cradle? About protecting me back then? Percival froze. You saw that? When I touched the bottle? He looked away, the mask of the king slipping to reveal a man haunted by centuries of regret. Your father. He was my friend. He wasn't human, Vivian. He was one of us. Selena killed him. She didn't know you existed until it was too late to kill you too. So she hid you, waiting until you were ripe enough to be a weapon. My father was a vampire? No, Percival said softly. He was a king, the king of the exiles. My breath hitched. Thalia. She has a tattoo, a broken crown. Thalia serves your father's memory, or she thinks she does. Suddenly the window shattered. It wasn't a rock, it was a bullet. It hit Percival in the shoulder, a specialized round, incendiary. He roared in pain as silver nitrate and fire exploded in his flesh. He was thrown back against the desk. "Percival!" I screamed, scrambling toward him. Another shot rang out, embedding itself in the floor where I had just been sitting. "Stay down!" Percival gritted out, clutching his shoulder. Smoke rose from the wound. He wasn't healing. The balcony doors were kicked in. 3 figures in tactical gear rappelled into the room. Hunters. And leading them was Thalia. She lowered her rifle, looking at Percival with cold detachment. "Sorry, Your Grace, but the king is dead. Long live the princess." She looked at me. "Get up, Vivian. We're leaving. Your mother is waiting." I looked at Percival, bleeding and incapacitated. Then I looked at Thalia, the girl who had told me to run. "You shot him," I said, my voice trembling. "He's a leech, Viv. He's the enemy. Come on." Thalia reached for me. I looked at Percival. His eyes met mine. There was no command in them. No run, no fight, just an acceptance of fate. He was ready to die to keep the secret of my father. Something inside me clicked. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard rage. The same rage I had felt in the glass garden. I stood up. "No," I said. Thalia blinked. "What?" I said no. I didn't lunge this time. I didn't punch. I simply pulled. I pulled at the energy in the room. I pulled at the shadows. I pulled at the blood in Thalia's veins. Thalia gasped, dropping the rifle as her knees buckled. The other 2 hunters grabbed their heads, screaming silently. "Vivian, stop!" Percival groaned. "You can't control it." I didn't care. I felt powerful. I felt inevitable. I raised my hand, and the hunters were thrown backward, blasted out of the broken window by a wave of pure kinetic force. I turned to Thalia. She was on the ground, staring at me in horror. "Tell my mother," I said, my voice sounding like 2 voices speaking at once, mine and something ancient, that her weapon has chosen a side. Thalia scrambled back, terrified, and fled through the shattered door. The energy left me as quickly as it had come. My knees gave out. Percival caught me with his good arm before I hit the floor. "You foolish girl," he whispered, but his voice was thick with awe. "You opened the door." "Just a crack," I murmured, darkness claiming my vision. "Just enough to let the dog out." As I lost consciousness, I saw Percival's wound. It wasn't healing because of the silver. It was healing because my blood had splattered onto it during the fight. My blood wasn't just a weapon. It was a cure, a universal cure for vampires. And if the world found out, they wouldn't just want to kill me. They would want to harvest me. I woke to the smell of antiseptic and burning ozone. The blue room was gone, replaced by the sterile white light of the manor's infirmary. My body felt heavy, not with fatigue, but with a strange, humming density. Like my bones had been replaced with lead and lightning. Percival was there. Of course he was. He sat in a chair beside the bed, his shirt ruined, the sleeve torn away to reveal a shoulder that was perfectly, terrifyingly unblemished. There was no scar. My blood hadn't just healed him. It had erased the injury from existence. "You've been asleep for 14 hours, he said, his voice rough. He didn't look at me. He was cleaning a silver dagger with a calm, rhythmic motion. "The hunters," I croaked. "Gone. Or buried. The perimeter is secure for now." He finally looked up. The gold flecks in his eyes seemed to have multiplied, swirling like a nebula. "We need to talk about what you did, Vivian." I pushed myself up, wincing as the room spun. "I saved you." "You did," he agreed, standing up. The air in the room shifted, becoming colder. "And in doing so, you signed your own death warrant. Do you understand what you are?" "A dampir. You told me." "You are not just a dampir." He threw the dagger onto the metal tray with a clang that made me jump. "You are the philosopher's stone in flesh and blood. That wound on my shoulder, it was necrotic. Silver nitrate, incurable. Your blood didn't just knit the flesh, it purged the silver. It turned the corruption into health." He walked over to the bed, leaning down until his face was inches from mine. "Vampires are dead, Vivian. We are static, frozen. Your blood, it forces life back into us. It forces mortality upon us." I stared at him, the realization dawning slowly. If a vampire drinks from me... "They don't gain power," Percival whispered. "They become human. They become weak. They become prey." My stomach turned to the council, to creatures like Lady Lysandra, who worshipped their own immortality. I wasn't just a threat. I was an existential horror, a disease that could rob them of their eternity. "They will come for you," Percival said, pulling back. "Not to capture you, not to use you, to erase you. They will burn this manor to the ground to ensure not a single drop of your blood survives." "And you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You're a vampire. Do you want to kill me?" Percival looked at me, a profound sadness softening his sharp features. He reached out, his cold fingers brushing a stray hair from my forehead. "I have lived for 400 years, Vivienne. I have seen empires rise and turn to dust. I have tasted every wine, heard every song, killed every enemy." His thumb traced the line of my jaw. "Eternity is a long time to be cold. The moment your blood touched me, I felt the sun on my face. Actual warmth. For the first time in centuries." He leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. "I do not want to kill you. I want to protect you, even if it means warring against my own kind." The intimacy of the moment was shattering. I had feared him, then hated him, and now he was the only anchor in a world that wanted to consume me. "So what do we do?" I whispered. "We run," Percival said. "I have a safe house in the Swiss Alps. If we leave now..." A siren began to wail, not a police siren, a deep, guttural horn that shook the foundations of the house. Percival froze. He moved to the window, tearing back the blinds. "Too late," he cursed. I scrambled out of bed and joined him. The forest surrounding the manor was alive with torches, hundreds of them. But it wasn't just the council's private security. There were armored vehicles, floodlights, men in tactical gear moving with military precision. Hunters, I breathed. My mother. And the council, Percival pointed out. On the other side of the river, sleek black limousines were lining up. Figures in velvet cloaks stood motionless, watching the house. They're working together, I asked, horrified. No, Percival grimaced, buttoning a fresh tactical vest over his chest. They are competing. It's a race to see who gets to kill you first. He turned to me, grabbing my shoulders. Listen to me closely. In the vault beneath the wine cellar, there is a tunnel. It leads to the river. You go. I stay. No, I said instantly. Vivian, I am done running, I shouted, the power in my blood flaring hot. I ran from my stepfather. I ran from the restaurant. I ran from the alley. I am not leaving you here to die. You cannot fight an army. I don't have to fight them, I said, a dangerous idea forming in my mind. I looked at the mirror, remembering the reflection I had seen. The monster with the needle teeth. I just have to change the rules. What are you thinking? Percival asked, eyeing me warily. I walked to the metal tray and picked up the silver dagger he had been cleaning. You said my blood makes vampires mortal, I said, testing the edge of the blade against my thumb. A bead of red welled up. What happens if we put it in the fire suppression system? Percival stared at me. Then a slow, terrifying smile spread across his face. It would turn the sprinklers into a rain of holy water, he said. It would strip the immortality from every vampire in the building. And the hunters? If the vampires are mortal, Percival said, checking the magazine of his handgun, then they are just men. And I can kill men. As we turned to leave the infirmary, the door slid open. Standing there was Elara, Percival's assistant. She held a tablet in one hand and a detonator in the other. Her eyes were black. No whites, no irises. Just void. The council regrets the interruption, she said in a voice that wasn't hers, but the fire suppression system has been disabled, and I have just armed the charges on the foundation pillars. You have 5 minutes to surrender, or we bring the mountain down on top of you. The explosion rocked the floor beneath us, sending plaster raining down from the ceiling. Elara, or whatever possessed her, didn't flinch. Elara, fight it! Percival commanded, his voice laced with a hypnotic undertone. You are stronger than the thrall. Elara is gone, the void-eyed woman smiled. There is only the hive. She pressed the button. Nothing happened. Elara frowned, clicking it again. Still nothing. I took the liberty of jamming the local frequencies 10 minutes ago, a voice called out from the hallway behind her. Elara spun around just as a crowbar connected with her head. She crumbled to the floor, unconscious. Thalia stood over her, panting, her sniper rifle strapped to her back and a heavy jammer device in her hand. She looked terrible, bruised, muddy, and bleeding from a cut on her forehead. You came back, I said, stunned. Yeah, well, Thalia spit blood onto the floor. I realized something. Selene promised me revenge for the King of Exiles, but if she kills you, she kills the last piece of him. She looked at Percival. Don't think this makes us friends, leech. I just hate her more than I hate you. The enemy of my enemy, Percival muttered, stepping over Elara's body. The sprinklers are offline. We need a new plan. The roof, Thalia said. My evac chopper is inbound. It's a 2-seater, but we can squeeze. No chopper is getting through that anti-air. Percival gestured to the window, where tracer rounds were already zipping through the night sky, targeting anything that moved. Then we fight, I said. Thalia, can you get to the main breaker? Kill the lights. Easy. Percival, I turned to him. Can you see in the dark? I was born in it. Good. Because I can feel them. I closed my eyes. The sensation was overwhelming but distinct. I could feel the heartbeats outside, the slow, sludge-like pulses of the vampires, the frantic, rabbit-fast rhythms of the humans. They're breaching the front doors, I said, my eyes snapping open, and the conservatory. We moved. The three of us, a vampire king, a rogue hunter, and a girl who was the fuse for the end of the world, ran through the corridors of the dying manor. We reached the grand hall, just as the massive oak doors splintered inward. A battering ram, wielded by 4 hulking thralls, smashed through. Behind them poured the hunters, and leading them was Celine. She wore white tactical armor, pristine and bright, standing out like a beacon in the gloom. She held a weapon I had never seen, a whip that crackled with blue electric energy. "Vivian," she called out, her voice amplified by a speaker. "Step away from the monster. Come to Mother." "You are not my mother," I screamed from the balcony. "You are a slave driver." "I am saving humanity," Selena retorted, snapping the whip. It struck a marble statue, shattering it to dust. "Do you know what happens if that thing survives? They will farm us, Vivian. They will put us in pens. I am ending the cycle. By killing your own daughter? By sacrificing a soldier," she signaled. The hunters raised their rifles. "Now!" I yelled. Thalia pulled the breaker. The manor plunged into absolute darkness. For a human, it would be terrifying, but I wasn't just human. I saw the heat signatures. I saw the fear. Percival moved. He was a blur of shadow. Screams erupted from the floor below as he tore through the hunter ranks, disarming them, breaking bones, but I noticed, not killing. He was holding back. For me. "Cover me," I told Thalia. I vaulted over the railing. I didn't fall. I drifted, the gravity losing its hold on me. I landed softly in the center of the chaos. "Light her up!" a hunter screamed. Flashlight swung towards me. Gunfire erupted. I raised my hand. "Stop." I didn't speak it. I pushed it. The bullets stopped in midair. They hung there, suspended in a field of kinetic energy that drained me with every second. My nose began to bleed. "Selena!" I screamed. "Call them off!" "Never!" Selena lunged at me, the electric whip arcing toward my neck. I couldn't block it. I was holding the bullets. Suddenly, a shadow intercepted the whip. Percival took the blow. The electricity wrapped around his torso, burning through his vest, searing his skin. He roared in agony, but didn't let go of the whip. He yanked it, pulling Selene off balance. She stumbled, drawing a silver knife with her other hand. She plunged it into Percival's side. He gasped, dropping to one knee. "No!" I shrieked. The controls snapped. The bullets I was holding clattered harmlessly to the floor as I directed all my energy into a shockwave. It hit Selene like a freight train. She flew backward, smashing through the heavy oak table where we had dined just nights ago. Silence fell over the hall. The hunters hesitated, seeing their leader down. The vampires at the windows paused, sensing the shift in power. I ran to Percival. He was pale, grey veins spreading from the knife wound. "Vivian," he choked out. "The knife. Poison." I grabbed the handle. It burned my hand, but I ripped it out. "Drink," I commanded, bringing my bleeding wrist to his mouth. "No," he refused, clenching his jaw. "I won't make you a thrall." "It won't make me a thrall," I sobbed, pressing my wrist against his lips. "It will make you free. Do it." He hesitated, his eyes locking with mine. Then the hunger took over. He bit down. The change was instant. A pulse of light, blinding and pure, exploded from us. It swept through the hall, knocking everyone flat. The light didn't stop at Percival. It acted like a contagion. It jumped from him to the nearest vampire at the window, then the next. A chain reaction of red lightning arced through the night. Outside, screams of pain turned into screams of confusion. The vampires weren't dying. They were changing. Their pale skin flushed with color. Their fangs retracted. I wasn't just curing Percival. I was curing all of them. I had become a biological antenna, broadcasting mortality. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of weeping. In the courtyard, men and women who had been apex predators minutes ago were staring at their hands, shivering in the cool night air. They could feel the cold. They could feel their hearts beating, weak, fluttering, human hearts. Percival lay on the floor. He wasn't moving. "Percival," I whispered, shaking him. "Percival!" His chest didn't rise. "No, no, no." I pressed my hands to his chest, trying to push more energy into him, but I was empty. "You don't get to die. You don't get to leave me." "He's gone, Viv," Thalia said softly, coming up behind me. She rested a hand on my shoulder. "He's not." I leaned down, pressing my ear to his chest. Silence. Then a thud. Soft, irregular. Thud, thud, and a gasp. Percival's eyes flew open. They weren't obsidian anymore. They were a clear, piercing hazel. The gold flecks were gone. He took a jagged breath, coughing. "That," he rasped, his voice sounding different, less resonant, more human, was an acquired taste. I laughed, a sound that was half sob, and collapsed onto his chest. He was warm, feverishly warm. "You're alive," I cried. "Alive," he repeated, lifting his hand to stare at it. It shook. And fragile. I feel hungry and not for blood. "Toast?" I offered weakly. "God, yes." A slow clapping echoed from the other side of the room. Selene pulled herself up from the debris. Her armor was cracked, her face bloody. She looked at the scene, the defanged vampires, the confused hunters, the human king. "You fool!" she spat, though she could barely stand. "You didn't save the world, you broke it. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've upset the balance of nature." "I created a new balance," I said, standing up and helping Percival to his feet. We stood together, him leaning on me leaning on him. "You've created chaos!" Selene screamed, reaching for a discarded pistol. Before she could raise it, a dozen red laser dots appeared on her chest. The hunters, her own men, had their weapons trained on her. "Stand down, Commander," one of the squad leaders said. "The war is over. The targets are neutralized." "Neutralized?" Selene looked around wildly. "They are vulnerable. Execute them." "They're unarmed civilians, ma'am," the soldier said coldly. "We hunt monsters. We don't execute sick people. And right now, you're the only one acting like a monster." Selene stared at them, betrayal warring with madness in her eyes. She looked at me one last time. "This isn't over, Vivian," she hissed. "Human or not, he is a beast, and one day he will eat you." "Get her out of here," Thalia ordered. Two soldiers grabbed Selene and dragged her away. She didn't fight. She just watched me with eyes full of hate. The sun began to crest over the horizon. Usually, this was the time Percival would retreat to the shadows. But today, he stood still. The first ray of light hit the broken window, spilling onto the floor. It crept toward his boot. He flinched instinctively. "It's okay," I squeezed his hand. "Trust me." He took a breath and stepped into the light. He didn't burn. He didn't turn to ash. The sunlight illuminated his face, revealing the fine lines of age that immortality had hidden, the human texture of his skin. He closed his eyes and tilted his head back, letting the warmth soak into him. A tear leaked from his eye. "It's warm," he whispered. "It is," I smiled. He turned to me, cupping my face with warm hands. "You gave up your crown to give me this." "I never wanted a crown," I said. "Well," Percival smiled, and it was a true smile, full of mischief and promise. "That's unfortunate, because I think you just accidentally conquered the entire underworld." I looked out the window. In the courtyard, the former vampires were looking up at the sunrise, some weeping, some laughing, and in the center of them all, looking up at the balcony, they began to kneel. Not to Percival, to me. As the scene settled, I felt a familiar vibration in my pocket. It was the dossier Percival had given me. I pulled it out. The contract, the one signed in blood by my ancestor, was fading, the ink was vanishing, the debt was paid, but as the old writing disappeared, new words etched themselves onto the parchment, glowing gold. "The line of the cure shall be the wardens of the Dusk. The king is dead. Long live the queen." My powers weren't gone. They had evolved. I wasn't just a battery anymore. I was the jailer. And Percival, he was just the first of many I would have to save. The weeks that followed were a blur of treaties and rehabilitation. Moorland Manor became a sanctuary, a hospital for the cured. Percival adapted to humanity with the grace of a king and the clumsiness of a newborn. He burned his tongue on coffee, tripped over rugs, and complained endlessly about the cold. But he was happy. We stood on the balcony, watching the repairs. The fear was gone, replaced by a tentative hope. My mother was in a maximum security prison for the criminally insane. Thalia had taken over the shattered remnants of the Hunter network, turning them into a peacekeeping force. Percival wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "What are you thinking, Your Majesty?" he teased. "I'm thinking," I said, leaning back into him, "that for a horror story, this turned out to be a pretty decent romance." "Oh, the horror isn't over." Percival kissed my cheek. "I have to file my taxes for the first time in 400 years next week. That is true terror." I laughed, looking out at the sun-drenched forest. We had survived the night. We had survived the curse. And for the first time, the future wasn't written in blood. It was a blank page, waiting for us to write it. Did you enjoy Vivian and Percival's journey from predator and prey to king and queen of a new world? If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please like this video and share it with your friends who love a dark, romantic fantasy with a twist. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Who should be the next supernatural creature to find redemption? Let me know in the comments below.